hello friends, and another video to do with Elite Dangerous, but hopefully be a bit different because I'm going to have a look at some things that some friends have asked about in terms of control configuration and how the sort of ship is controlled in Elite Dangerous, and also a quick little chat about Eyefinity. Remember, we're still at Alpha 1.1 here. I'm quite late into it. I was originally on the beta, and I just paid a 50 quid upgrade to get in on the Alpha, which twisted my arm, and I've bought in. So yeah, I'm not really going to go into gameplay. There are tons of videos that show how pretty it looks and explain the gameplay, so I'm not really going to go into that. So first thing to talk about is Eyefinity. As you can see, I've got and you can't quite see there, but there's a three panel setup here. And Eyefinity kind of works but doesn't yet. That's not to say it won't in the final one, of course. But there's at the moment there's some field of view issues, and it's not really making the most of what the immersive feel is of a 3-screen setup, or what it should be. So just for the benefit of people who maybe not seeing exactly what the problem is, I thought, well, let's show it first. Very short bit, and then we'll go into game config and stuff. So right, Eyefinity setup. And you can see what happens here is if we go into graphics, the typical thing that you would do is you would change the resolution here to a virtual resolution that spans all the 3 screens. If we do that, unfortunately, we get this problem where the menus are rather massively expanded on the screen. It works thankfully with these bits just because there's a very small menu, but if you go to launch one of the combat scenarios, you can see, if I come back here and see the 3-screen setup, the scaling's all off a bit at the moment. However, it does still run. And we are technically using 3 screens, but the issue at the moment is that the field of view isn't right, basically, and you will see once it's loaded. So you can see in the game that it's all perfectly playable, really. In terms of controls and graphics, it works, but you can see that the field of view isn't right, that all of the objects in the side views are rather stretched out. If we look here at the boulders as you asteroids, as you fly past them, and I think the idea that would have been better is that if we flick to the side views that you would use to view your module usage, or the other side to view your contacts, you're not really making the most of the screens here. It would be better, I think, if these were represented on this view already for you. You know, you make use of this screen here. So as it stands, the field of view is kind of squished down on the top and stretched out on the sides. Not quite working. Hopefully that'll be addressed for the final one, because it would be a real shame to not make the most of Eyefinity. Okay, so let's go over, let's not worry too much about Eyefinity, and we'll go back to just a single screen setup. So only the middle one here is going to be used. I'll turn them off. So settings and controls and configuration of control. So what am I running? I've got, it's all very vintage here actually, I've got a very old Belkin M52 speed pad here. It's I don't know, it must be 15 years old. It's basically, if you've not seen one of these before, it's basically an extended keyboard. So these just emulate keys on your keyboard, WASD. You've got a scroll wheel, you know, various hotkeys, and it fits nicely in the palm. So you can sit on the desk there and have lots of keys easily at your fingertips. Normal keyboard and mouse, which we won't be really using, and then another old vintage throwback, an old CH-F16 combat stick. Now this must be knocking on for 20 years old, I would think, 15 or 20 years. Originally it was an analog stick, but I've converted it to USB. If you're alright with electronics and a bit of soldering, I'll put a link underneath the video, or in the video, for a piece of hardware that you can solder in here, a little circuit board that's available from a guy on the internet that converts old analog devices to USB. So yeah, so it's simple stick, various configurable, 2 4-directional hats. It's got a throttle built in there. You can't really see it very well. And you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 6 buttons, 2 directional hats. So, without further ado, we'll go in the game and we'll have a look at some of the controls that Elite Dangerous allows you to set up and how I've configured them. Now, of course, each to their own, so you might configure them some other way. But my thoughts are that trying to play this with just a mouse and keyboard, yeah, it might be doable, but I think you're really going to get the most out of Elite Dangerous with a half decent joystick with quite a good few controls on it. But you know, interestingly, I don't think you have to go all out with, you know, a several £100 HOTAS system where you've got, you know, hands-on throttle and stick they call it, so you've got lots and lots of controls. I'm just about getting by with this setup, so hopefully all will become apparent when we go in and have a look at the options and have a play around. So in the control settings here, we've got some stuff around mouse control, which I'm not using, but obviously you can control your shit with mouse if you wish, dead zones and stuff like that set. So you're into roll is quite an important feature, I think. You can turn it off, you can have on initial roll or on low roll. See, I've got it set to on low roll here. And what this does is it allows a small degree of movement to the left or right on your joystick to yaw the ship instead of roll it. So a small amount of movement here would yaw the ship like so, and then by moving that past a certain break point, if you like, then the ship will start to roll instead. You see the same this way, small degree of input, yaw the ship, move it a bit more, and you start to roll. And this is very useful in combat and sort of manoeuvring of the ship in general, because it allows you to fine-tune your aim to the left or right without having to actually roll the ship, which would be quite time-consuming and impractical. So that's quite a good feature and something that falls very naturally in gameplay when you're using it. So it's certainly not something that gets in the way. But you can turn it off if you want to. But I don't imagine, unless you put yaw on another control, you would want to really. So yeah, it's got that on low roll. We've got some options around setting the throttle range, so that if you do have a separate throttle, it can do full range forward and backwards, or just forward thrust only if you use a separate throttle. Your axis, again, like we've spoken with that, yaw on roll, you can set the yaw on a separate analog controller if you wish. So you might have some rudder pedals, for example. You could use those to control your left and right. I've not got them set here because that yaw on roll setting on the joystick allows me to do all the necessary yaw I need to. But you could do that here. Pitch should be fairly obvious. That's pulling the craft up or down, typically with your joystick. So you would nose it forward, nose it up. This is represented, sort of this kind of motion in the craft. Fairly straightforward. In terms of roll, again, you've already seen this, but this would be joystick movements to the left or right. Obviously rolls the craft. And we also have lateral thrust, which this is kind of side slipping the craft, basically. So best way I can explain this is like you would see in a normal first-person shooter game that you might play, where you sort of slide left or right. So I've got these set to the A and D keys, which on my pad come out and on here and here, just sort of in the WASD setup, and that allows you to slide left and right, which is kind of useful for fine tuning. Similar capability with vertical, so you can set a vertical thrust axis if you've got a joystick to do that, or you can set keys, thrust up or down. I'm not actually using that, but you could thrust the ship up that way if you want. Flight assist if you want to fly manually, more of that in some other video I think. Throttle axis if you've got a separate throttle, like a dedicated throttle joystick or a throttle wheel on your existing joystick. Interestingly, I'm not using this because on my joystick it's down at the base of the joystick, and it would mean taking my hand off to change. So, so I don't actually use a throttle axis as such, an analog device. I just use W and S, forwards and backwards if you like, to increase or decrease. So, thrust forwards, you can boost the ship forwards and thrust. And likewise press S to reduce that down, so you can slow the ship down. So yeah, there's also various speed settings. You can hard set keys to 100 at 25% brake points, or what I have done is I've set X to just be set speed to 0, so you can come to a halt, a hard halt, by tapping X. Targeting is another important bit. You've got fairly straightforward options: target ahead, cycle through all targets forwards and backwards, or cycle through hostile targets forwards and backwards, and a select nearest hostile button. You can see I've got these configured on one of the 4 position hats basically. I only use cycle next target and previous target, left and right on the hat. Pulling down on the hat is select nearest hostile. Pushing up on the hat is selecting the next hostile, and then I've got the button here that targets whatever's underneath the reticle basically. So target the ship that's immediately ahead of you basically. This is very useful in combat, so you can once you've lost a target like this, when you finally take it out, you can just quickly choose next hostile down on the hat, and there you go, it's selected. There are some other options around previous and subsystems, but I'm not using those yet. I'm not entirely sure whether they're relevant in the alpha. Primary fire and secondary fire should be fairly obvious. You've got 2 weapons, and you can fire those independently. I've got these set to this button, thumb button on the joystick, as secondary fire, and the trigger obviously here as the primary fire. You can deploy your hard points separately, so you can deploy your weapons out. I've got them set on this button here, so you can deploy them and pack them away. Quite what the benefit of that is, I don't know. Toggle silent running basically shuts down your shields and brings the heat signature of your ship down vastly, but obviously at the expense of energy generation for your system, so it helps prevent your detection basically. And you can turn your ship lights on and off, which again I presume is linked to detection basically and going unseen. Sensor range, I've got these set on the keypad as well. Obviously the radar has various range settings, you can adjust that. Power distribution is a very important feature, and you can see I've got these set on the second hat that I've got on the joystick. So you've got various positions here, up, down, left and right, that can redirect power to shields, well, systems, to weapons or to engines, or you can distribute the power across all 3 systems. And this is good in prioritising where you need the power at any point in time, and you do end up using that quite a lot, so it's useful to have that on hand. If you need to boost the speed, redirect power to engines. If you're getting shot up, you can redirect to shields and keep them charged, you know. Useful. Finally, there's some options around your target panel and your systems panel. Got a couple of keys that bring these up. These are like head-up displays off to the side of your cockpit, so you can't actually see them unless you select them, and your view kind of switches off to the side, so like so. On the side you have the system panel, which allows you to change
your power distribution, turn systems off, life support, bad idea, shield generators for example, and control the amount of heat that you generate. So you just need some keys set up here to navigate those menus. It's just up, down, left, right, and select. So I just use the WASD keys again for that, and F for select. You can double set those as well as use them for controls in the game, you know. So I've got WASD set for forwards, backwards, and slide left and right. But when you're in one of the interface panels, when you're in interface mode, they can be used to do other things. So that's good. The UI panel, cycle to next, cycle to previous, I've also got set on the keypad as well. Just you've got multiple panels in that display. So if you see here, you've got modules and file groups that you can flip between. Yeah. And finally, you've got various settings around head look. So switch into head look mode, and then you can look around your ship, left, right, up, down, so on and so forth.
The head view stuff is interesting because you'll see I haven't got any of that configured, because I'm going to be hopefully using a alternative to Track IR called Free Track, which is a free infrared based head position sensor. Basically it uses a webcam to pick up the position of your head in 3D space, and so you can use head look by actually moving your physical head, and your view changes in the game. Maybe go into that in the next video basically, but that's it for this one. Hopefully my friends who've asked about it, that's given you kind of what you was interested in, and watch this space for another one at some point. See you later.